Good day everyone, welcome to my presentation. On my next slide here we have the 5 points that we're going to talk about, which number 1 here is the front page, while the number 2 is the introduction to fish migration, then number 3 the type of fish migration on the basis of needs, then number 4 the type of fish migration on the significance of the type of fish migration and the significance of fish migration. So here the number 3 and the number 2 will be thinking maybe they are the same. No, they are not the same. The number 3 said the type of fish migration on the basis of needs, while the number 4 said the type of fish migration and significance of fish migration. Then the last one, which is number 5, is factors that influence fish migration. I am by name Salman Abdullah Olaleko, a student of Federal University Gishwa, Yobe State, Nigeria, from the Department of Fishery and Aquaculture, Faculty of Agric. I'm to discuss on fish migration, and this topic is under a course title Fish Adaptation and Physiology with the course code FIS 314. On my next slide here is the introduction to fish migration. But before we proceed to know the meaning of fish migration, we first talk about the migration in general. So, migration is a behavioral phenomenon which involves mass movement of animal from one place to another, and the purpose for migration vary accordingly with the type of animal. What we are saying here is that migration is the changing of environment of animal from one environment to another, and their movement, their migration is vary depending on the type of the animal. So now we move to fish migration. So many types of fish migrate on a regular basis on time scale ranging from daily to annual or longer, and over distance ranging from a few meters to thousands of kilometers. Then the journey is purposely mainly for feeding and reproduction. The reason for fish migration is purposed mainly for feeding and reproduction. But in some cases, the reasons are not clear. What I mean there is that in some cases, the reason for migration are not clear. So on my next slide here, we have the type of fish migration on the basis of needs, and we have movement of fish during the migration. So number 1 that we are going to talk about is the types of fish migration on their basis of needs. So number 1 is elementary or feeding migration. That means the number 1 type is feeding migration. That means they migrate for searching of food, for searching of their feeding ground. So this happens when they have exhausted their food resources. Then number 2 is gametic or spanning migration. This gametic or spanning migration, it happens during the fish breeding season, which make them search for the suitable spawning ground. Then the next one here is climatic or seasonal migration. Climatic or seasonal migration is a migration in which fish search for suitable climate condition when the environment that they have, the current environment that they have, when the climatic condition is very high or too low for them, so they have to migrate for suitable climate condition. The number 4, which is the next one, is osmoregulatory migration. Is the migration for water and electrolytes, balance from sea to fresh water, and vice versa. While the last one is juvenile migration. It is liver migration from spawning ground to feeding habit of their parent. So we have done with the type of fish migration on the base of needs. The next one here is movement of fish during migration. Movement of fishes during migration. We have 4 movements here, which is number 1 is the drifting movement. Drifting movement. While number 2 is dispersal movement. Number 3 is swimming movement. While number 4 is denatant and contranatant movement. Drifting movement is a passive movement of fish along with the water current. Passive movement of fish along with the water current. That means fish move along with the water current. Then the next one is dispersal movement. It is a random locomotory movement of fish from a uniform habitat to diverse direction. Number 3 is swimming movement. It is an oriented movement of fish either toward or away from the source of stimulus. Then the number 4, which is the denatant and contranatant movement. It is an active swimming movement. The denatant movement is swimming with the water current, while contranatant movement is swimming against the water current. Swimming with the water current, that's the denatant, while contranatant is swimming against water current. And my next slide is the type of fish migration. The migration of some fishes is a regular journey and is truly an innate animal behavior. Fish migration are classified into following types. We have 6 types. So number 1 is diadromous migration. Diadromous migration, it is the migration of fish between sea and fresh water. Migration of fish between sea and fresh water. As we know, most of the fishes are restricted to either fresh water or seawater. What they are talking about here is that we have different type of fish. We have some they are freshwater, and while some are seawater. That means they are marine water, salty fish water. So changes in habitat may cause osmotic imbalance in those fishes. However, some fishes regularly migrate between sea and fresh water and have perfect osmotic balance. They are the true migratory fish. This migration is of 2 types. So the diadromous migration, they are of 2 types, which we have anadromous migration and catadromous migration. Anadromous migration is the migration of marine fish that are living in the sea. Migration of marine fish from sea to the fresh water. They are living in the sea and they migrate to fresh water for spawning. Fishes spend most of their life living and feeding in sea water. They only migrate during breeding to the river for spawning. The example of fish on this type of migration, we have salmon, we have lamprey. And we say salmon migrate for breeding during winter from sea to river. The number 2 is catadromous migration. It is a migration of freshwater fish. The fishes that are living in the freshwater, they migrate from that freshwater to sea during breeding for spawning. So examples is eel fish, which is Anguilla species. This Anguilla species, we have European and we have American. European and American. So the next type of fish migration is potamodromous. Potamodromous migration. It is a freshwater migration of fresh from one habitat to another for feeding or spawning. Then the example of this is crabs and catfish. The number 3 is oceanodromous migration. It is the migration of fish within sea in searching of suitable feeding and spawning ground. Their own migration is within the sea. Then the next one is latitudinal migration. It is the migration of fish from north to south and vice versa. It is a climatic migration. The example of fish on this type of migration is swordfish. Then swordfish migrate north in spring and south in autumn. The number 5 is vertical migration. It is the daily migration of fish from deep to surface and vice versa. That means they migrate from deep to surface, from the depth of the sea to the surface, or from the surface of the sea to the depth. So the example of fish on this is swordfish. Swordfish usually move vertically downward to greater depth for food. Then the last one is southward migration. It is the migration of fish from water to land. That means southward migration is the migration of fish from the water to the land. Then the next one that we are going to talk about here is the significance of fish migration. That is the importance of fish migration. Number 1 is to find suitable feeding and spawning ground. Number 2, for protection from predators. Number 3, to survive from extreme climate condition. While number 4 is to increase genetic diversity. Then the last one is it is an adaptational character for survival and existence. So here we are going to talk about the factors that influence fish migration. We have 3 factors. Number 1 factor is environmental factors. Under these environmental factors, we have 6 factors there, which we have the temperature, the water flow, salinity, oxygen level, photoperiod, and tides. Temperature. Fish often migrate to find optimum temperatures for feeding, growth, and reproduction. Seasonal change in temperature can trigger migration. That's the only factors that can trigger migration. Seasonal change in temperature can trigger migration. Then the next one is water flow. Change in water flow, such as increased flow during spring melt or reduced flow in drought condition, can influence migration patterns. Then the next one is salinity. Fish that migrate between freshwater and salty water, like salmon, respond to change in salinity. Oxygen level, which is the next one. Low oxygen level in water due to pollution or high temperature can drive fish to migrate to area with high oxygen content. Then the next one is photoperiod. Change in day length can act as cue of migration timing. Then the last one is tide. For fish like eel, tide can dedicate migratory movement. So the next factor is biological factors. Under these biological factors, we have reproduction, feeding, predator avoidance, and life cycle. So reproduction. Many fish migrate to specific breeding ground, e.g. salmon. Salmon return to their natal rivers to spawn. Then feeding. Fish migrate to areas where feed is abundant, which can be influenced by seasonal availability of prey. Then predator avoidance. Some fish migrate to avoid predation, especially during vulnerable life stage like spawning. Then the last one is life cycle. Certain species undergo migration as part of their life cycle, moving between juvenile and adult habitats. Then the last factor is anthropogenic factors. So under these anthropogenic factors, we have dams and barriers. That's number 1. Number 2, pollution. Number 3, climate change. Then number 4 is overfishing, while the last one is habitat modification. Dams and barriers. Physical barriers like dams can obstruct migration routes, leading to significant population decline. Then population. Chemical pollution can degrade water quality and force fish to migrate away from contaminated area. Then the next one is climatic change. Warming ocean, changing precipitation pattern and altered river flow due to climate change can significantly disrupt migration pattern. Then the next one is overfishing. Deflation of fish. Deflation of fish population in certain area may force species to migrate in search of food and safe habitats. Then habitat modification. Urbanization, deforestation, and agricultural practice can alter fish habitat, influencing their migration. In conclusion, fish migration is a vital aspect of aquatic ecosystem, influencing fish population, predator-prey dynamic, and overall biodiversity. Understanding and protecting migratory routes and habitats are crucial for maintaining healthy fish population and ensuring the sustainability of both freshwater and marine environment. Conservation efforts must address the challenges posed by habitat loss and climatic change, overfishing and population to support the resilience and continuity of fish migration. Thanks for listening.